I want to switch gears a little bit. We've been talking on timerbowling.com a little bit on the state of the PBA. And while I know there are still some financial difficulties, one of my concerns is how half of the tournaments are basically decided in one venue in a couple weeks or so. Let me just start out by asking you, what do you think of the World Series of Bowling?
You know, I believe that the World Series of Bowling has a lot more pros than it does cons. Obviously, in every event, you're going to keep a very, very small amount of people happy because they're the ones winning. And everyone else who's losing is going to find a reason to make themselves either feel better, to complain about, or whatever it is. And, for example, one place is Reno. It's considered a left-handed bowling house. So a lot of people complain about Reno before they even get there just because of its history. And the same thing with South Point, because it's a high-friction centre. I think a lot of people started complaining that the hook guys were going to do well, and ultimately we took advantage of that hesitation from everyone else. Yep. So being in one building, whilst it does have its cons, I think the pros certainly outweigh it. It keeps the players' expenses down. We're not, jumping around all over the place. I think it also helps places like South Point have a relationship with the PBA that can extend for multiple years to guarantee them weeks of competition there at one time. They can really build a solid relationship with the fans in Vegas and also with the PBA. And it also gives the ability to international players to cut down their expenses to come and bowl against the best bowlers in the world. And that's something that I think is really important. A lot of people may not know, but when I first started traveling to the PBA, it was week-by-week stops, and it was very difficult for me, and still is, but much more back then, to do what I did, because it was sometimes 8 to 10 weeks in a row I was on the road. My expenses were very high, and you had to also come home. Because you couldn't spend the entire season over there, so you'd come home and then go back, come home and then go back. And from Australia to the US, it's roughly around about $2,000 a flight. So it definitely added up the price there. Yeah. The World Series as it is now, it lets players from all over the world, say for one airline ticket, they can spend 3 weeks in one city, one bowling centre, bowl multiple events and have multiple chances of attaining a PBA title, or even just to gain experience that they would not normally get in Europe or Asia. So I believe that's a really big winner. And this season, I think it proved a little bit that the rest of the world has definitely caught up a little bit to the US. We dominated the World Series of Bowling with every singles event going to an international player. And whilst I think the majority of the Americans wouldn't like that, I think for bowling it was a really good thing. Bowling is a world game. It's the second most participated sport in the world, and to see people from all over this globe win on the biggest stage in the world has to be beneficial to bowling. And hopefully there's a couple of sponsors out there that saw that and noticed that bowling isn't just primarily in the US, it's a global game, and hopefully a sponsor recognizes that and wants to get on board.
Yeah, definitely. And I personally like the concept of the World Series of Bowling. I guess one of the questions I have is it foreseeable to fit with the longevity of the PBA having that much of the season consolidated? So I think it was something like 8 championships decided more or less in one venue. I wonder what your thoughts are. Maybe two points: either from the longevity of the PBA tour itself, having that, and second, would it help if there were multiple venues within Vegas to run the World Series of Bowling?
I think the first thing is, the PBA in their budgets have had to do a lot of cost-cutting measures Having one venue and the delayed taping, so all the shows get taped in a few days, saves a considerable amount of money for the PBA. I understand that was one of the reasons why it was popular in terms of the idea in running the World Series as it is. I agree with you. I'm not a big fan that the season is so squished, and there are 8 events, one in one setting, and then only 4 or 5 for the rest of the season. Believe you me, all the players on tour wish the season was longer as well, and so did the PBA. This isn't them trying to just play games with us and shorten our season. They have a game plan in their mind, and one of those plans is to, of course, to find more money for the players, to stretch out the season so it lasts longer, so the players have a little bit more of a guaranteed income and job. And ultimately, I believe the World Series is the start of that. In my dream season, I would actually like to see 2 World Series in the season. I'd like to see one at the beginning, one at the end, and a bunch of tournaments through the middle of it. Yeah. So, it's back to a full season, and the players can choose how many events they want to go to. Because right now we're pretty much forced to bowl everything if you want to have a chance to make a living. And for the guys who are traveling from around the world, it's a really tough decision. Do you fly from Europe or Australia for an extra frame tournament that's worth $10,000 on top when it's cost $3,000 to get there? Yeah. So it is very difficult, but I believe that we're on the right road, and I think that the guys at the PBA are doing their very best. And if anyone out there thinks that they're trying to hurt the game on purpose, they're crazy, because I've seen the passion within that organisation, and the guys who are a part of that organisation want nothing more than to see $1 million pro bowlers, because it benefits them.
Yeah, and I certainly hope most people would agree with you, and maybe it's a matter of patience is a virtue, right? I think we have to wait it out. I agree with you. World Series of Bowling is a start. I think it's a good step, and hopefully we can kind of move on from there and make things better. So switching to the World Bowling Tour, I think many in the U.S. are not familiar with the WBT. And yourself being a professional who travels around the world, what are your thoughts on the WBT, and do you think it'll increase the popularity of bowling?
Yeah, well, I think the 2 main points there is, one, the PBA and the WBT are paired together. So when you win a World Bowling Tour event, it counts as a professional title, which one of the 2 titles that Michael Fagan won this season. One of them was in Paris, and I think Oscar was the other player who won the Q8 Open, which was a part of the World Bowling Tour, which gave him another PBA title. I think that is a really good stepping stone to generate a world PBA, and I don't want to call it that because it's more than the PBA. It's a world tour. And I think the World Bowling Tour is the beginning stages of what could be a really impressive kind of world stage that players from all over the globe can travel, from the States, from Asia, from Australia, from Europe, and compete against each other and earn PBA titles, which is pretty special. Yeah. I think it's in the right direction. What I would have loved to have seen was perhaps this season, it was kind of, in my opinion, it felt a little rushed, how the PBA and the WBT kind of banded together. The World Bowling Tour season had already started, so we had people who had won events early in the year who didn't get PBA titles, and then you had people only a couple of weeks later win and get PBA titles. I felt that was a little unfair for the guys earlier on. And I also felt like for those that wanted to travel around the world, it would have been a lot easier for us to plan those had we had known there was a lot more at stake at these tournaments. Hence, a PBA title or a chance for a better record for the world for Player of the Year.
Sure.
So I think it has some really good qualities. I just wish that this season they had have just kind of worked together and planned something a little bit clearer for the following seasons.
Yeah.
But look, I think I've said it for years since I started traveling. I wish the Pro Tour would make it around the world because it's what the sport needs. We need to get out into the rest of the world and showcase every single nation that has phenomenal bowlers, and this is one way to do it.
Sure. And speaking of travel, did you give our viewers a flavor of where you've been through this season for bowling?
Right. Since joining the tour, I have to say that my traveling into exotic places have definitely cut down, unless you consider small towns in America exotic. But I've been to South Africa. I was in Johannesburg for the AMF World Cup. I've been to Japan, Korea. Where have I been this season? Predominantly the States. But now the season's over, we've got events in Japan again for the Japan Cup. Australia has an event which is awesome, the Australian Masters, which is a part of the World Bowling Tour. So it's pretty special for me to not have to fly 20-something hours to go to a tournament,
Absolutely.
which is awesome. And after that, I think the end of the year, there's probably the Qatar Open in the Middle East, and then we're back into the World Series in Vegas again. So before you know it, it spins right back around and the season starts again.
Sure. And is there a favorite place out of all those places you've been?
Well, was obviously besides Australia, because it's paradise here. But if I had to go to another place of my choice, I really enjoyed Sweden. I have a lot of good friends there, and I think that might have been one of the main reasons why I enjoyed it so much was because I had such a huge support of friends there that obviously looked after me. But I love Japan. I really love the culture. I love the food, and and the cities are so diverse, from Tokyo, to a really small town a couple of hours outside of Tokyo, and you go back to the roots of its history, the rice paddies, and just a very slower way of life. And just a couple of hours north, you have one of the most technologically advanced cities in the world. And I love that cultural balance that the country has. So it'll either be Sweden or Japan for me.
Thank you for watching Timer Bowling Video Ball Reviews.